Hi, everyone. We're going to give it a few more minutes, a minute or so for people to log on. We see quite a few people still logging on, so just giving it a minute, but welcome, welcome. Okay, well, we're going to get started. We are so excited that you are all here. Thank you first for being here on all different coast times. We've got West Coast, Midwest, and East Coast all joining us today. My name is Lori Colvin, and I'm a partner and CMO at Armanino. I am also the vice chair of our internal Women's Advancement Network, so I have the pleasure of being your moderator today. We've got three incredible women on this call for a discussion that are all CEOs and founders of their own companies. And really, in learning more about them, I saw this similar traits in them, that they were all incredibly hardworking, super smart, and very focused with this belief and desire that they could do something better and different for the marketplace. And so it's going to be exciting to hear those stories. And I know this year has been quite a year, as we all know, but we do have a lot of inspiration to look at. We've got a vice president that is female, the first in history. We have 31 CEOs that Diana wrote about that you're going to get to hear a little bit from, about women that started their own business and what they've done to be entrepreneurs. As well as here at Armanino, we had 43% of our internal partners promoted who were female. So lots to be very inspired by. But let me tell you the reason we're really here. We wanted to do something different, and that was to encourage all of you to invite your kids, both boys and girls, or kids that were important in your lives, to join this webinar and really have an experience to share the stories of these women and help sort of aspire to where our future female leaders could be headed for the next generation. So next, we wanted to say that we had one of our child participants wrote Robin, our ice cream owner, a letter. And Robin, you'll have to get to these questions, but we wanted to share this with you. She said, "Dear Miss Fisher, my name is Taylor Slaby. I love earning money. I earn money by a lemonade stand. I'm very interested in learning how you can make ice cream in 90 seconds. I'm so excited to meet you and learn more." And then she goes on to ask, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? And when did you start dreaming of wanting to make your own ice cream? So here's what we want to see you. We want to understand what kids are on this webinar. So if you guys can open up your chat box, and if you can write, and I'm talking school kids, college, we want to see the whole gamut. If you could type in your first name and your age, that would be wonderful, so that everybody can see in the chat. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to save time so that we can watch, so that we can have time for you all to ask questions. So that will be coming up soon. So before we get started, I did want to give, oh, I see the names popping in. Oh, Elizabeth's 56, great. So we've got all the names and ages popping in. I wanted to give a special thanks to the Armanino Foundation, which is our giving arm. They're going to be donating 250 of Diana's books to Junior Achievement, and of course to the Women's Advancement Network, who here we are determined to continue to help our females reach the highest levels of leadership here at Armanino. And I wanted to also share with you how this whole webinar came to be. I wanted to be able to introduce to you one of my partners, Dean Quiambo, so he can tell you the story of how this webinar came to be. So Dean, do you want to come on and tell your story?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to thank everyone for coming together to make this happen. This is my pride and joy right here. My daughter Presley, she's 10, and for National Daughter Day, we posted that she was reading this book, The Amazing Girls Who Run the World. And so we're just excited that this all came about. The power of social media. There are some bright spots in 2020, and this being one of them, right? We all get to come together at one time to make this happen. So Presley, really quick, what kind of entrepreneur do you want to be when you grow up?
Either a pet.
That's what we're watching a lot of today, right? We watch a lot of, what's it called? Fixer Upper?
Yeah.
A lot of Fixer Upper and a lot of, what's the other show? Studio McGee. Those are all hot topics in our house these days. So we're looking for more inspiration today. Thank you so much.
Nice, thank you. So yeah, Dean posted this picture of his daughter reading the book, and Diana, who we want to introduce next, pinged us and said, hey, I'm the author of that book. Let's talk. So we wanted to give you a chance to hear a little bit about why our journalist and author Diana Kapp wrote this book, sort of what inspired her and some insights there. So Diana, come on board.
Oh, I got it. Sorry, I gotta take off my camera. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to be here, and I'm so excited to see all these names of girls and to finally meet your daughter, Dean, who had that great posting that was, I mean, I get so excited when I think that this book is out in the world and girls are actually reading it. And I get a lot of little notes like the one that was written to Robin. So that's very exciting. So I am a longtime journalist in San Francisco, and I write about everything from a woman building schools in Afghanistan, which allowed me to travel around there with my mother and this teacher. I've written about prisoners inside San Quentin who are becoming entrepreneurs and starting their own businesses. But I've always been very interested in women and work and sort of the issues around that. And I've done quite a bit of writing. But where this book comes from is just a very personal place. So the first story I should tell you is that when I was in elementary school, so I was, I think, in 5th grade, we had a career day at my school, and we could go to any one of like 100 different seminars. And I went to hairdressing and cake baking. So I wasn't a hugely ambitious young girl, and I also just didn't know much about what was out there and what one could do. And when everything changed for me is in 2005, I had my 3rd child. On July 5th, out pops Emma Sawtooth Singer. And I swear she came out of me with her hands on her hips, bossing me around, issuing orders. And I say bossy in the best possible way. She's a girl who knows her own mind. She's very confident. She wanted a whiteboard for her 5th birthday. She keeps lists. She checks everything off. She would keep us captive in her room while playing school, where she always appointed herself the teacher. So I thought to myself, my God, I've got myself here like a born CEO. But it's kind of upsetting because I don't think she'll ever be one. The numbers are so terrible. So I graduated from Stanford Business School in 1996. And that year there was 0 female CEOs in the Fortune 500. So the biggest 500 companies in America. And now 25 years have passed, and we still only have 5% of the CEOs in the Fortune 500 are females. And 2 weeks before my book came out, there was a list put out by Forbes magazine, and it was titled America's 100 Most Innovative Leaders. And it was a list of 99 men and 1 woman. And so this is a modern problem. This isn't something that's in the past. And what's kind of, what makes no sense about this is that there's incredible number of women out there that are reinventing every industry and category you can think of. Armanino has a very large number of female clients, starting businesses in categories like cryptocurrency. And what I thought is, these women are out there, girls don't know about them. The books that are in the bookstore about kind of pioneering women are about people like Marie Curie and Amelia Earhart and Rosa Parks, pioneering women of the past. But there's so many pioneering women of the present, and they have so much to teach us. And so I spent a couple of months figuring out who I wanted to write about, and I identified 31 women. It was going to be 30, but then I wanted Soul Cycle, and that was a pair of women. And so I interviewed them and asked them lots of questions, and then I wrote up each of their stories. And so one of the women in the book, Christina Stembel, you're going to meet her today. And then the other two are just incredible CEOs who I've met in my journey of going out and talking about the book. And one last thing I'll tell you is, I use this word to describe what I think these women all have in common, and it's a word, moxie. And it just is this quality of never taking no for an answer, not asking permission, and just having a very deep belief in yourself. Doesn't mean you don't have doubts and fears, but you somehow face those down and keep going. And a lot of this is about just keeping going. And it'll be interesting for you to hear the stories of keeping going today. They all have that story. So nice to see you, and on to the CEOs.
Thank you so much, Diana, for all of the great information in that book and the stories. It's been a fascinating read, so I thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the panelists so that you get a little flavor about who they are and what they do. And first up is Christina Stembel, who is the founder and CEO of Farm Girl Flowers. And it was interesting to hear her business philosophy. She first thought about In-N-Out Burger and how they make a basic burger, but it is exceptional. She wanted to do that as well with flowers. And she went through 14 different materials to really replace that cellophane, that ugly cellophane that comes around a bouquet, to really make an identifiable, beautiful piece that people would know her for. Our next panelist is Eliza Blank, who wanted to flip the house plant industry on its head and really make it easy for consumers to have online service delivered right through their home, and take away all the sort of questions that you have about houseplants that you don't know, and make it very, very easy. I found an interesting story of her when she first began in New York. She actually drove the streets in the garden area of New York to track down those vendors that had the best plants so she could identify her suppliers. And then our third panelist, who Taylor wrote the letter to, is Robin Sue Fisher, who's the founder and CEO of Smitten Ice Cream. And she really was on a mission to re-engineer ice cream from the ground up. And a story that was interesting is she went into Starbucks, spent the whole day at Starbucks trying to figure out how long will somebody wait for the perfect cup of coffee. She got it down to about 3 minutes, and she said, aha, I'm going to go with a 90-second ultra machine that will produce just wonderful ice cream. So those are our three panelists. We're now going to get their faces up here, and we do want to continue to encourage you guys, type your questions in the chat box, put your age so we know, so we can pick some of our younger audiences as well, and we'll get going here. So Christina, we're going to start with you, and if everyone wants to unmute themselves. So Christina, talk to us about your real conviction to your idea and how you were so laser focused, and why.
Yeah, so I think I like to be really clear about the why behind starting a business, because I think as women, especially in a creative space, we get pigeonholed a lot into if it's something creative like ice cream or plants or flowers, people automatically assume that it was your passion in life and you were just lucky to turn that into a business. And they don't do that same thing with entrepreneurs who happen to be male. They seem to do that with women predominantly. And I didn't know anything about flowers. I didn't start, I didn't love flowers. I didn't grow up frolicking in my grandmother's flower garden and want to turn it into a business. I wanted to start a business and I wanted it to check some boxes. I wanted it to be able to grow really big. I wanted to serve a purpose. I wanted it to be a company that could do good in the world. I knew it would need to be bootstrapped because talking about statistics, we as women do not have the same opportunities to capital and networking as our male counterparts do. So I knew with no college education, growing up on a farm in Indiana, that there was no way I was gonna be able to go to Sandhill Road here and just be like, hey, give me millions of dollars. So, I came up with, I had idea notebooks that I would carry around with me for years, trying to come up with one that could tick all those boxes. And the flowers was the first idea I had that just could do all of those things. And so, I taught myself from YouTube how to process a flower and, spent lots of times on Google researching and, built a financial model and business plan in an industry where I could actually disrupt something, do something new, make a difference in the world and bootstrap it. And so that's why I launched with this idea. And I just like to be really clear because, nobody, journalists don't ever ask, male entrepreneurs, which that's not even a word, right? There's female entrepreneurs and there's entrepreneurs for a reason, right? But they don't ask them, like, hey, do you count yourself so lucky that you were able to turn your passion into a business? And I'm like, flowers weren't my passion. I thought they were a waste of money. I was trying to solve that problem that I thought they were a waste of money. I didn't like what was out there. And I wanted to provide a better alternative. And so that's what I did. And I think we need to be really clear about that as female entrepreneurs, that we have just the same opportunities and we can start businesses without them being our passion. And in fact, that probably will make it even more successful because you can do unit economics and make sure the money works as well because you're not so close to it.
Right, that's a really good point. You're right. You do hear that, oh, I'm passionate about that, but you're right. You looked at it as a business. Let's look at what's the best market opportunity as well. I love that. Okay, next up is going to be Robin, who is Smitten Ice Cream. And Robin, why did you believe your ice cream idea to be so different? And why do you think it really won in the marketplace?
Thank you for saying that it won, first of all.
Of course.
It's a never-ending struggle, but what got me going with Smitten in the first place was not dissimilar to what Christina just said. I felt like there was a massive disconnect between what it seemed consumers were purchasing and what the product actually was. And to me, that was that, ice cream has this very wholesome image. And despite that, it is one of the most processed, shelf life oriented products on the market. And so I was alarmed that, coffee being basically a drug that you're going to drink, whether it tastes good or not, to keep yourself awake, was like this fresh product. But ice cream, which you're only eating because you're trying to indulge in the moment and it must taste amazing, was not fresh. And so my goal with Smitten was really to literally reverse engineer, starting from like, let's throw away the factory and figure out how to develop a scalable, fresh technology that allows people to really have an unparalleled moment of joy. Because that's what ice cream should be. It shouldn't be this shelf life oriented, carcinogenic, treat. So it was really both a technology problem and, as Christina did as well, sort of a real sort of business problem dilemma of like, how do we make sure that this will, it'll work, it'll make better ice cream and it'll make it fresh in a time that people will be willing to wait. And how does it actually not lose money? So there were like many, many different elements involved. And it literally took me 4 years before making a dime. So if anybody wants to hear stories about how entrepreneurship is not sexy, I'm happy to answer that.
And so specifically what Taylor wanted to know is, how did you develop a machine that worked in 90 seconds? That is amazing.
Wow,
yeah, right.
So it was a decade of constant development. How I started was I actually graduated from business school. dedicated to trying to do something different. And there's parts of my personality that I can get into if people are interested later that really sort of led me in that direction of not doing a normal corporate thing. And I basically decided to bootstrap. I found a retired engineer who had a workshop in his basement. And I literally worked in his basement for the next 2 years, and made ice cream every day, like literally. And I cried a lot and felt lonely a lot. And then, after basically hitting our heads against the wall and I learned how to weld, we ended up coming up with a first prototype that made better ice cream than I'd ever witnessed before. And that was just the beginning of the journey, because that 2 years in, we had the best product I'd ever imagined. And it was the middle of one of the deepest recessions of my lifetime. So that started a whole nother dilemma that I think really was challenging, and also pretty early on in the scheme of the business's life, really tested it to make sure that it could persevere through times like now. So, but basically the sort of funnest part was, or the best part of the story was, I ended up strapping my prototype machine to a radio flyer wagon and building a battery pack out of an old motorcycle battery that I borrowed from a machine shop, and starting a Twitter handle, and literally just this was the beginning of Twitter. So I was like one of the first sort of like people using it for food, and just sort of shouted out to the world, hey, I'm a new street food cart in town. Come and get it before I sell out or before the cops find me. And then I sold ice cream every day in different spots so that the cops never found me. Though they did once, which is a whole nother story. But it was a very, very unique, I'd say, starting story. And it was all about adapting and responding to the times. But that was way too long of an answer.
No, that's good. I love your Twitter piece, right? Hey, I'll be on the corner of 5th and Main, And what is your favorite flavor?
I've been thinking about that a lot.
I know. That's a hard one.
So I'd say my favorites, like if I had to pick one Smitten flavor that was always there, I would go with our chocolate ganache or our cookie dough, which has it's a homemade cookie dough, eggless, with pretzels and chocolate chips. But if I had to choose like one flavor that is sometimes there and sometimes not, our seasonal flavors are there for like 2 months and then they may never be back. And one of my favorites that we ever had was a blood orange with pistachio shortbread cookies.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Eliza, we're kind of curious about sort of what constant in your life really kept you moving forward, right? I mean, as we've heard, this is not easy. So really kept you from not giving up and just persevering ahead.
Yeah. I would say that I am stubborn, right? I'm stubborn and I'm a problem solver. And very much like Christina and Robin, I'm a business person. I wanted to solve this problem and I wanted to build a business. Of course, I also want to bring plants to people. That is my business. But I came to this with a very specific vision, which included how do you build a viable business in this space? And to Christina's point, you don't always get credit for that. You assume that you're, 9 years old and frolicking through a garden. But in fact, not unlike Christina's story, I happened to be motivated by the fact that there were so many soap brands out on the shelf. And I spent some time in the CPG space. But truly, I felt like if there is a brand that can launch yet again another soap product, but package it well, call it something special, make it a wonderful fragrance, then certainly I can take something like plants, which is effectively also a commodity, and distinguish it through brand and build a business that's unique and credible and really special and still bring people a lot of joy. So combination of stubbornness and a real desire to problem solve. I think along with that, really surrounding yourself with a supportive network. That might be your family, that might be your partner. And in fact, for all the kids listening, for me, it was actually my big brother. He's 3.5 years older than me, which isn't much at our age. But he was an entrepreneur first, and he told me very early on that if I didn't quit, I would succeed. And that just stuck with me. And I just said, all right, I'm going to show up every day until I figure this out. Another problem will come my way, and I will show up every day until I figure that out. And that's all that's been driving me for nearly 8 years now.
Yeah, that network. I mean, you talk about that, right? Can you expand a little bit more on that? What else do you get from your network that has really helped you with that drive?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because I think what's unique about, being a female founder and being a female CEO is it's lonely. So you have to find, and now Christina and Robin, I'm going to reach out to you and we're going to become best friends, because you have to surround yourself with other people who are doing it, or other people who are going to encourage you and push you through the dark times, the tough times, because there will be plenty of them. And so I find myself today, most of my friends are other entrepreneurs who really understand what I'm going through, so they can, coach me through some of the more challenging periods of the business cycle, which are bound to happen. So whether it's, again, it's family, it's your friends, it's also finding and making friends in the space that you operate in. It doesn't matter to me whether you make ice cream or flowers or in my space. The fact that you're running a business means you get me and you can support me.
Perfect. Okay, Christina, how did you gain really the confidence to start your own business? As we sort of in our WAN network move around, we hear that a lot from young people. How do you get the confidence to do this? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't know that I actually had the confidence. Honestly, I just knew I wanted to do it, and so I was going to do it. I never needed validation from other people. I think this is really important for especially young girls. I think we're kind of conditioned, to think that we need other people's approval. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and I wish I could go back 10 years ago and tell my 10-year ago self to care about people, but don't care about what they think of you. Because I spent too much time worried about what other people thought. And when I think about why I didn't start a company sooner, I think it was not because I was worried about failing. I think I was worried about what people would think of me if I failed. I was okay if I failed, okay, I have 4,000 other ideas in these notebooks, it's fine, but I think, we are just so conditioned to care about what everybody else thinks about us. And, girls and women are really cruel to each other. They're really cruel. And, I attribute it, I could go on for hours about this, so I won't, but every movie we watch growing up, every Disney show, even, you're fighting the other girl for a boy, for a man who's the ultimate goal. And I think that's conditioning gets in us. And, the people that have been the most unkind to me and the most critical of, there's always armchair quarterbacks everywhere telling me everything that I'm doing is not correct and I should do something different. And they're mostly women. And I think we need to rally around each other and support each other, because it's already hard enough. We already have less than a 2% chance of ever getting to $1 million in revenue. And that's 4.5 times higher likelihood if you're a male-owned company. We have less than now it's a 1.5%, the newest data shows, of raising capital, which I found I had 104 no's. We bootstrapped to date because we've gotten all no's, I think we need to support each other, to build each other up. And then I think confidence will come from that, instead of, tearing each other down. But really just, if I can impart one thing, it's to, you don't want to become so jaded that you don't care about people anymore, which I found that I was kind of going down that direction a little bit because of all of the negativity. And I don't want to become that hard person, because, I want to believe the best in people, but, care about them, but really don't give any weight to anything people say, because it's probably coming from a place, where they're not satisfied and, with themselves, and wanting to, they're a little jealous that they wanted to start a business and haven't. And so it's easier to tear someone else down, than to do it themselves. So, and then just go for it, to, Eliza's point, the thing that I think, the only thing that sets me apart from all the other, entrepreneurs that don't make it, is the fact that I'll get back up every single day, no matter how far I fell down the day before. You just get back up, you dust yourself off. It's like when you fall in the street and you look around to see if anybody saw you. Yeah, of course they saw you. Just don't care if they saw you, because, and then get back up and do another day,
Well, I mean, it sounds like you have that, right? 104 no's. How do you recover from that? And like you said, you just keep picking yourself up and know you're going to get a yes.
Yeah. So that's the other like most important thing that I've learned in the last 10 years. We just turned 10 years, November 7th. The first two were in my dining room. We're no longer really a startup, but we're still, a small-ish business, and I thought naively that, when I said that I knew I needed to bootstrap it, I thought I would prove the concept out. I would go down to Sand Hill Road. I would say, look, we made it past $1 million. We've already surpassed, what only 2% of women-owned businesses can do. And now give me money. And that didn't work, and it continued to not work. And so I got really dejected by it. I got a bit bitter by it. And, something that Sheryl Sandberg said really resonated with me. She said that, people trust people that look like them. And so, I'm pitching to a bunch of 50-year-old white men. That's just like 95% of the people I was pitching to, that's what they looked like. They don't buy flowers. 80% of people that buy flowers are women buying for women, but there's not a lot of women VCs out there. And even the ones I was pitching to, have a higher, they don't want to take a risk because, they're such a minority. So, and perishable products are a risk. We're not going to ever have huge margins. And so, that took the bitterness away. And then the kind of clincher for me was when, I think we over glamorize venture capital, way over glamorize it. When I would go to networking events and I would talk to people and, they would first, second, or third question would be like, oh, who invested or what round are you on? And it's not even like, if you got investment, it had to be the right caliber of company to invest. And as soon as I would say we're bootstrapped, that was like a dirty word. And they would like look over my shoulder for someone more important to talk to. And I'm like, but wait. And I was like justifying like, we have over 100% year-over-year growth. And we're like, all this stuff that I'm like, I don't need to justify it. Like, and then being in rooms with VCs where they would really have the stupidest ideas, which I'm sure there's some VCs on this call. And I'm sorry for saying that, but for me, I was just like, wait, why am I giving them so much weight and so much like they're the smartest people in the room? I've been doing this for 10 years now. And, I know what I'm doing. And the fact that we're over, $65 million in revenue bootstrapped, like that's something, and that should speak for itself. And the fact that it doesn't isn't my problem. It's their problem. And this is the first year that I can honestly say I'm so glad that I bootstrapped because I own 100% of the company, and we're going to do 100 million next year probably in revenue. So like to own 100% of that, I get to make decisions for my company that are the right thing for my company. And I honestly don't think we would have survived this year through COVID if I did have a board that I had to get approval from on how quickly we had to pivot. We had about 10 minutes to pivot, and change our entire thing. And we couldn't have done that so seamlessly if we'd had a board. And I can do things like, full benefits and a matching 401k. And we're working on on-site childcare now at all 8 of our locations, and, I would never be able to justify to a board millions of dollars to spend on that. But it's the right thing to do for my team. And I can do that because we're bootstrapped. So I now count myself lucky.
Well, I tell you, Diana had it right with moxie. That's a lot of moxie, Christina.
Thanks.
Well, and Eliza, speaking of sort of the financial side, is how important is it for you as an entrepreneur to really understand the financial responsibility of starting and owning a business?
Yeah, I thought about this question when it got sent over to me. I mean, as a business owner, it's mission critical. I have a CFO, but that doesn't mean I don't know any less than she does. And in fact, I think the more informed you are as a business owner around like business math, ultimately, the more successful you're going to be. This is something you do not want to outsource to someone and just trust that they have your best intentions. When it comes to how you run your business, your business economics, your unit economics, as Christina mentioned, you need to know that really well. And you need to have a value set that drives how you spend money. And I think that's maybe a missing piece for a lot of the companies that Christina's talking about, is that, you need to make sure that what you value shows up in your P&L, in your profit and loss statement. And that's how I run my business. And I couldn't do that if I didn't understand the simple mechanics of business finance. Now, I didn't know this when I started. So I started my business when I was 26. I was a major of communications. I worked at a creative agency before I started, so I had to learn it, but there's nothing like learning on the job. And, you know, I have to say, at least for myself, I really learned how I learn well, and it's through doing, and it's with really tangible examples. It's not, you know, widget company over here makes 100 widgets for $10 each. It's, this is my business. This is the money that I'm spending. And, you know, similarly, I bootstrapped for the first 5 years of my business. I had to spend every single dollar like it was my own, because it was. So, and the only way I could survive as a business was to sell my product and make a profit on it. So there was no choice there. And I think, you know, at this rate in my business, bootstrapping is in my DNA, and I still spend every single dollar like it's my own. And I watch my financials like a hawk, and I know every line item in depth, forwards, backwards, last year and 3 years ahead. And I think that's what I attribute a lot of our success to.
So you talked about having to learn on the job. For those young entrepreneurs that are listening, how sort of, what resources might you suggest they go to sort of learn some of these really tangible basics?
Well, these guys have the internet. I mean, please, I don't even know. You know, I actually count myself lucky. Like a lot of the tools that I've used to build the SIL actually started around the time that the SIL did, mainly in the social sphere. But even certainly, you know, some of the other resources I've gone to learn things. The fact that you can Google anything is a huge advantage. And I think, and I hope that means we're actually going to get a lot more entrepreneurs and innovators, because resources are literally at our fingertips. I can't imagine what it could have looked like if I tried to start a business 25 years earlier than when I did. So I would just say lean into everything that you have access to, because most questions can be answered in just a few clicks.
Nice. So Robin, thinking about our younger audience here, are there things you learned when you were young, maybe in your school years or from others, that you really felt like this helped me be who I am and really is something that helped me drive to this place?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say, Christina, we got to hang out, girl, because we're both now 10 years old in our business. And I feel like the word that I use to describe some of the feeling that I have is like, I feel like Smitten and maybe Farm Girl, like we're kind of like tweeners. Like we're too good to be for venture capitalists because we're too far along, but we don't want to just keep pressing repeat in the way that that private equity does. So we're kind of like, and so we just kind of do our own thing. So like, I gotcha. So yeah, anyway, in terms of what I did in school, so I grew up with two brothers, a twin brother and an older brother. And there was no, like, I think I was very lucky that there was no really like gender stereotyping. I played the same sports. I probably was better at them, luckily. And I just kind of, I feel like I was very lucky to have sort of this like common track for our family. And the things that I think have impacted me a lot are twofold. One is sports. So I was always, everyone knows me, says like, don't play a game against me because I'm way too competitive. So I think I just have that like inner sort of competitive drive. Like I want to do the best I can. I don't necessarily need to win, but if I like do something that was my fault, I get really annoyed. So like that is kind of like an inner drive. The other thing that that was in my childhood that I hope is not in many people's childhoods is I had several early illnesses when I was a kid. When I was 4 and when I was 7, I had operations, and so I was kind of in and out of the hospital for some number of years in my early childhood. That really made me to be like, you know, totally transparent. It really made me a pretty anxious little girl, and it made me think a lot about the world. It made me think a lot about what grownups were doing. And I remember as a little girl kind of looking around and being like, I don't understand why all the grownups like go put on uncomfortable clothes every day and like go to like an office building and like sit down and like eat grass in like the little eat lunch in little grass like area in the parking lot and then like come home tired. Like I don't understand why that's like what we do. And I was also just like anxious all the time. So as I was growing up, was kind of like, I don't feel like that would fit me. And a lot of my path thereafter was kind of like exploring. So I would like purposefully take some bigger risks than maybe I should have as an anxious person. And it was mostly like testing myself and trying to figure out where I fit, because I didn't really feel like I fit in like the corporate world. And I went to business school. I went to Stanford too, Diana. I think she knew that. I remember going and being like, okay, like I'm basically here because I feel like, I'll figure out something will come walk through the door and I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's it. That's where I belong. And that didn't happen. So I found myself, only applying to 2 positions out of business school, one of which was with the FBI, because I thought it was kind of badass. And so I was like choosing between being a special agent in the FBI or starting an ice cream company, which is like as different as you can be, because like I was literally, I was very sure of what I didn't want to do and not sure of what I did. And I knew it wasn't, I didn't want to go down the path that I'd seen from afar. And where I ended up sort of going to the ice cream route was the realization that I was only, independent, only had to fend for myself. And at this pretty, being able to like fall and get back up again stage, probably for, a handful of years. I knew I wanted a family one day, et cetera. And so I was like, this is like probably the time in my life where if I'm going to do something crazy, like I should do it now. And so that's what led me down the ice cream route. But I do think that the foundation of really trying to figure myself out from an early age, recognizing what I didn't want, and having just sort of like the inner drive to kind of win. The other thing is I did work in the corporate world for 5 years before business school. So I did know in the US and in Europe, and I didn't know how that worked. And one of the things that I figured out about myself in that was that I hate following directions. So that's good in some ways and really bad in other ways. But as a consultant, I was a management consultant. And basically the life of a management consultant is basically like, here's a template that is sold to a customer and go follow that template in that industry and then solve their problem using that template. And so I found myself kind of like ignoring the templates and building my own like problem solving routes and like building my own structures of thinking around them. And then at some point, the firm I was with started selling my thought processes as new structures. So I just like switched to like the intellectual property team and started like, I was like, okay, this I like here's the problem, here's how everyone else is solving it. Now I'm gonna like solve it differently. And I realized that is kind of like one of my, like, if I had a superpower, like, I don't think I follow the dots. And so I realized that there's a lot of industries that hasn't been applied to. And ice cream is actually a passion of mine. It always has been. And one of the reasons why is because of my childhood as an anxious kid. I like reveled in the moments that I just forgot the stress and forgot the anxiety. And those were sports. Those were like eating ice cream when it was just like about the present. And so ice cream was always this like moment of joy. And I felt like it was contaminated when I learned more about the industry, because everyone was following, the rules of they were doing this because they do it this way, and they do it this way, and they do it this way. And I was like, screw that. Let's like purposefully start at the beginning of the problem and work that way, as opposed to like relying on the status quo. So all those things I think really informed me in Smitten.
Yeah, I love hearing how you really defined what you wanted out of life and built it around. I mean, wow, if that's not moxie and focus, I don't know what is. So Eliza, let's turn to you in terms of social media. You have 800,000 followers, and we've got a lot of kids on the call that are involved in social media and really wanting to know sort of what would you sort of tell them about how it can help them and what you want to be thinking about in the future with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, social media, right? We have a number of platforms, many of which I'm on both personally and professionally, many of which I'm not on and know very little about. I am not a user of TikTok, but I appreciate the fact that many of you probably are. But it's a platform. It's a way to get awareness for your idea, for your brand, and to spread your vision. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's another opportunity that we have today that we didn't have before, that helps sort of democratize and lower this barrier to entry into business. It's just another reason, in my opinion, to follow a path of entrepreneurship, because we have tools and access to these really democratizing platforms. So I can be in the same place as Nike and build an audience in the very same way. And again, I mentioned this before, I mean, a lot of success comes down to luck and timing. I believe you have to be prepared for it, which is the old adage, but the luck of it was that Instagram started, you know, around the same time that the SIL did, and we got on early. It sounds like, Robin, you got on early to Twitter, and probably it worked in the same way for you. It was just an interesting way to use social. You know, a lot of businesses weren't on it per se, but, you know, there's not a lot more visual than plants or flowers or ice cream. So why not try and use that platform? So for us, it was Instagram. For future brands, it might be TikTok. But with it, you know, I think this was the follow-up to your question that you posed to me earlier is, you know, is there responsibility, or what's the magnitude of it? And I think it's important for everyone who uses social, and especially if you're young and new to social, to understand it does mean that everybody can see what you're posting. You do have a responsibility, especially as you build an audience. You have to consider, how could I potentially use my platform for good? And I think we saw a lot of that in 2020. And it was certainly a new lesson for me to learn of, okay, we do have, you know, well over 800,000 followers who, you know, who are engaged with the SIL. Can there be something more that we say, understanding we have this captive audience that we think is important, and again, fits with our value set. So it's an interesting place that we're in time with social media, because I think it helps us spread the word. It's certainly a marketing tool that we also think is fun, but with it comes responsibility, and you have to really be thoughtful about what messages you're putting out into the world.
Thank you. Yes. Christina, what is sort of some advice for parents, right? Who are, a lot of them are on this call now, is sort of the best way to encourage their children towards entrepreneurship, but also, you know, giving some sense of reality, and what is the right balance for that?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I think entrepreneurship, the main thing that's helped me with entrepreneurship is my ability to not run out of money. So to Eliza's point, I know every dollar we spend. I have a $65 million company. Like, I know every dollar we spend. Still, I'm the CFO of the company as well. Someday I will have a CFO, and that will be a joy, but it'll probably be the last job I give up, because I think teaching your kids money management and how to work hard, those two things. I think what I have seen a lot, we have, you know, 250 plus team members now on our team, 256, I think. And we tend to hire a lot of young people on our team. Work ethic is definitely something that I think we're starting to lack a little bit of. I grew up on a farm, so I was taught to work really hard, really young, like picking up rocks in the field. I mean, literally stuff like that. And I think the two things that have really allowed us to succeed is my ability to, you know, use a calculator and figure out, like, I need to spend less than I make. And I don't think that's a skill that many people are taught anymore. And then also, I know how to work harder than anybody else. It's kind of like, you know, Will Smith, he said something that really resonated with me. You know, he said, like, he's not the best looking guy, he's not the best actor, but if he gets on a treadmill next to somebody, he's not getting off until after they get off. And I will work harder than any person out there. And, you know, I'm not smarter than a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm not more connected, I don't have more money, but I will outwork anyone. And so I think if you teach your kids those two things, how to work hard and how to be good with money, that will set them up for success if they decide to go become an entrepreneur. I think, you know, fear is something everybody talks about, like not having, you know, not being scared to do it. And that's an obvious one too, but those two skills, like, you can have all, like, you know, the moxie and like the guts in the world to like go jump off the cliff and start a company. But if you can't spend less than you make, and you can't work hard, you're not going to make it.
I like that. Those are two really good pieces of advice. Robin, what is your superpower? You talked about it a little bit, but I really am curious to know, sort of as you think about female leaders in these next generations, are there superpowers that you think would really fit the marketplace well, and what are those for females?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. A couple of things. One, I think we do think differently, and I think that's a good thing. And so I think if you recognize that in yourself, then double down. A couple other things that I found have been really helpful, and I've figured them out partially by screwing up. So I hope that I avoid some screw up by saying that. One is at the time it was kind of an unfortunate thing to learn, but I think since then it's been like very helpful, which is don't try to be like the well-balanced leader. Double down on what you're good at. And so, you know, when I went to business school, my goal was literally to try to become versatile, to be like, okay, I can do anything. And so I like kind of like opted out of the things that I already knew I was good at to try to like get better at the things that I had zero experience in. And literally I was on like academic probation for the first semester because I was like drowning in finance and econ, having zero experience in it and being in class with like all these investment bankers. And part of what I realized was I don't need to get as good as them. I just need to know what I don't know. And then let me go to the things that I'm actually really good at. And I just learned that I'm better at them because I'm like with all these people who are really good at things and I'm still doing pretty well. So and then let me get better at that so that I can add tremendous value to my team in the areas that only I can. And I just need to know the questions to ask for what I'm not good at so that I can fill those holes. So it's interesting because both Eliza and Christina have said that they focused on sort of a more wide area. So for me, I just realized that, and maybe it was because I was literally like learning how to be an engineer at the same time as learning how to like run a business. So that was too many things to learn at once. So I kind of was like, okay, I got to pick and choose. And I had like, I'm super interested in innovation and building stuff. So I was just like, that's already something I'm interested in. I think I can get way better at it. So that was one. And then the other thing that it sounds like there's like total alignment between the three women here, which is pretty rad, is I don't think I fear failure at all. I don't, because I fear regret. I've always said that like regret is so much more tormenting than failure. And so I just don't want to look back and say, what if? But if I fail, like I'm going to fail flat on my face publicly because I won't look back on that and say, oh, I just didn't put myself out there enough. And then I can, I can like check that box and be like, all right, like I gave it my all, let's move on. But if I don't do that, then I always have this itch at the back of my mind that I'm like, oh, you know what? Like that's still alive in the back of my brain because I just didn't push it all the way. And so I really believe in doing over talking. That's why I like sold ice cream on the street rogue for a while, because I was like, the public will tell me if it's not a good idea. I'm not going to sell, to my friends in their kitchen. And I do believe like fail quickly and horribly, and then move on if you need to.
Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of themes between the three of you. I mean, that confidence, that picking yourself back up and never giving up, I mean, really is really super impressive. And so we're going to start to turn to the audience questions. I know that I had one last question for all of you. And as I thought about this last question, I thought, I think I stole this from my 22-year-old daughter. And sure enough, I see she asked the same question, but it is an interesting one. What advice would you give to your younger selves? If you can each answer that, starting with Christina.
I really think it's the like care about people, but not what they think of you. Also, just go for it. Like I wanted to start a company at 22 and I didn't. So just go do it. And then, don't have the regret like Robin talked about, because I agree with that completely. Just do it and then fail fast, and then you'll learn stuff and then you'll start another one.
Awesome. And what about Robin?
So I feel like a lot of us probably would say like we're perfectionists, and probably, I think that that's like a common flaw. And I hate that answer to questions as much as probably anyone here does. And I think the big thing that I've learned along the way is this real belief that like I'm not going to be able to juggle all the balls. So learn which balls are rubber and which balls are glass.
Nice. And Eliza?
Yeah, I think thematically I'm on board with Christina in a sense. I spent a lot of my, I would say like middle school and high school, really, really wishing that I was like everybody else. I grew up in a place where not a lot of people looked like me, and that was hard. Not the most hard. Certainly people have it harder, but it put a chip on my shoulder. And I would say today, I never want to be like anybody else. And I relish in all of the things that make me unique and different. And so I would tell myself at a younger age to stop trying to be like everybody else, because you know what? When you get older, you're never going to want to be like anyone else ever again.
Awesome. Thanks. So, gosh, we have so many questions that have come in. I'm going to start with one from Samantha, who's out there, who's 19. She says she's a sophomore at Cal Poly and studying plant science. So this question is mainly for Eliza and Christina. Do you have any words of advice of how to get ahead in finding job opportunities and setting yourself apart from other entrepreneurs in this field?
Yeah, you want to take it or?
Go ahead, you can start.
I would just say like, we're hiring like crazy right now. And the candidates that really stand out to me are the ones that are really persistent, because we're getting so many applicants. It's the people, like a lot of times people will be like, oh, I get so upset when people try to find me on LinkedIn and DM me on Instagram stuff. I love those people, because I'm like, if you're this persistent to like literally daily DM me, you're going to get a call, So I just say like, be super persistent and, send portfolios, send like anything that sets you apart. Like I actually did the most embarrassing thing ever. And I'm sure Benefit Cosmetics still has this somewhere in the HR office somewhere, this big, massive portfolio that I sent to them when I was like 22, probably, because I wanted to work for them so bad that I made this huge portfolio that I think had stickers on it. I'm not joking. That's how bad it was. And they probably use it as a like, what not to do that. And I would hire you. So.
That's amazing. I actually think I also applied for a job at Benefit back in the day. So look at us. We're both Benefit rejects. Their loss. First of all, I love that you're in plant science. I think there's not enough people getting into plant science, and certainly not enough women. I think I caught that. So good on you. I think that alone makes you stand apart. And look, I think the work that myself and Christina are doing is creating jobs for women like you. I think plants is on fire. People want plants in their lives. There's never been more momentum in the category. So whether you're going the route of entrepreneurship or looking to break into the industry, I think there's more jobs than ever before. And connect with us on LinkedIn and we'll help you out.
Nice. So Robin, here's a question for you. What is your advice for finding clients or a target audience for a side hustle that hopefully turns into a business?
Wow. What is my advice for finding clients? You probably don't like my answer, or your parents probably don't like my answer. But I mean, I think for me, it was literally, let me see where the people who are buying similar products, who see value in things that take a little bit longer, but that are, are real and elevate an experience. Where are they currently spending their time, spending their energy, spending their money. That was like the reason why I opened our first store in the neighborhood that I did, because it was the same alleyway that Blue Bottle started. Blue Bottle is like a, I don't know if everyone knows it. It's now a very, very famous sort of third wave coffee company. And their first store was in a garage on the same like tiny street that my first store was in a shipping container. And so I really felt like, people who were saying it takes like 5 minutes to get a latte, but it's using like organic milk because it tastes better, and it's, well sourced and is worth it. I felt like they would understand why I was trying to elevate ice cream. So I literally was like, they have to kind of walk down this alley to get their coffee. So maybe they'll come back in the evening. So that was how I sort of decided the first time to put roots down. But other than that, I think I learned a lot about the industry. After I went to business school, I actually went to Penn State ice cream school, and literally threw myself into how is everyone else doing this and how are they thinking through the category, so that I could pick out, the things that I thought, were done well and were not. So I think it's a lot of learning by doing, and some literally putting myself in the shoes of the people I was trying not to be.
Nice, thanks. Christina, this one's for you. How do you think we can change the stereotypes about women in business to create a more level playing field? So asking women CEOs how they have it all, kids, family, etc., versus not asking men those same things.
Yeah, I think it's calling out the questions when you get asked. It's not saying female CEOs, it's saying a CEO who happens to be female, and pointing out the difference in how men are just called entrepreneurs and not, male entrepreneurs or male CEOs, or, there's never a qualifier for their gender before the word. And so I try to call that out in any chance I can. The amount of times I get asked in press interviews just happened this morning actually on, can women have it all? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the most tired question I've ever heard. Like, no one can have it all. Okay. Like, like calling out the questions that you get. So people will start to think about like, why are they asking them in the first place? And then I really think it also, the ripple effect goes to like supporting each other as women, instead of tearing each other down. I think there's a big ripple effect with that as well. So I think if we can, those are like actionable items that we can do every day. It's kind of, this is many generations of, I did grow up with very, very strict gender roles where my brother was sent to college and my sister and I were told to get married and have kids. It was definitely a farm mentality. And so, what I realized is this is just, multi-generations of marketing that's been told to us, and marketing works, so we're not going to change it overnight, but those are steps that, small actionable steps we can do.
Nice. Okay, Eliza, Hillary, who's 12 years old, has a question for you. She says, I have my own clothing and accessory business. I was just wondering how you fund your business in the beginning. And also, there was a lot of questions about what bootlegging means. So maybe as you answer this question that people answered, but you could answer that as well.
Yeah. So bootstrapping is when you self-fund your business, as opposed to going to bank to get debt, going to raise venture capital or private equity. There's a lot of ways to finance your business. Bootstrapping in particular means that it's self-funded and you're not going after some other form of capital to some extent. I mean, there's nuance, right? At the age of 12, so I can speak from my experience at the age of 26, I'd saved a lot of my own money. I had mentally prepared to live a very thrifty lifestyle, which thrifty is like literally my middle name. I actually, Robin, it's funny because you say that you're competitive because you're an athlete. Like I actually have this like weird competitiveness with like how thrifty I can be. And that goes a long way when you're bootstrapping. When you're 12 and you don't have access to other income, like at 26, I did some consulting on the side. I had saved some money from being in, sort of the corporate world before. I don't know if you earn an allowance or if you have any access to capital, but you do want to save. Or I will say this, we've talked a little bit about investors here. At the age of 12, I would recommend that you could go out and get some investors. Maybe it's your parents, maybe it's family members, maybe it's members of the community, maybe it's however you're manufacturing or supplying the materials for this clothing accessories business. But I will also say this, the best way to earn money is to sell your product. So if you are finding that you're selling your product, Christina's advice was, make sure that you're earning more than you're spending, and reinvest a little bit of your earnings back into your business, and you're going to grow it slowly over time and responsibly. And that's the best advice I can give.
Nice. So Robin, more on the advice side, were you working a job and also building your business on the side, or did you save up and just go for it? Advice tips for someone looking to get out of the working world and into their own business, which you actually talked a little bit about, but what is that advice?
So regarding what I did dive in head first, no other job. And then, that got old after a while, because everything takes a lot longer than intended. But I did feel like it needed the focus of, let me go after it as long as I can. But I was funding the development of a stainless steel vacuum jacketed prototype, which is not cheap. And I just graduated from business school, and paying those bills, which is not cheap. So I ran out of money pretty fast. And then I got consulting jobs on the side, and tried to get ones that were either understanding and I could do them some days a week and not other days a week. And one time I just did this like 6-week super intensive project in Europe, 16 countries in Europe in 6 weeks. And the goal was just like build up cash so that I can come back and like flat out again and like not try to split my time. But there's practicalities of starting a business, and one of them is money. So I think that everyone has to answer that on their own. I do think the times when I could focus on just Smitten, I was way more productive. But I couldn't do that 100% of the time for 4 years. So yeah, practical wins.
Yeah. So Samantha, 19 years old, wants to ask Christina specifically, I know from working with Rose Float that a lot of flower farmers are out of business due to the pandemic. How has this affected your business, and what steps are you taking to adapt to the situation? Oh, I think you're unmuted, Alison.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So yeah, this pandemic has definitely been hard on all businesses, and it goes from supply chain fully through distribution and transportation. And the farming has been hit pretty hard, especially with food crops. We've worked on special programs. I'm really proud of the fact that we kept a lot of farms in business through this. But that was a ripple effect of having very supportive customers that continued to buy from us at 100% growth year over year. A lot of other companies weren't so fortunate, and that impacted supply chain a lot. So, we worked on programs where we're working on custom programs with farms where we pre-buy seed, tubers, things like that. So that way it helps them with cash flow right now. There's going to be a full 1 year. This is probably more information than everybody wants on the call, but we're going to be seeing the impact of this for years to come, but in very direct ways for at least a year, because growing cycles, range from anywhere from 6 weeks to 12 months for crops. And, when the pandemic hit and everybody canceled all their orders, the farms had to stop planting and stop production. And so by the time they got back to production, that leaves big gaps. So we're seeing that with supply chain, and are just working on creative ways to help the farms that we work with.
Nice. And Eliza, what did you find to be the most common misconception about owning your own business? And was there anything, anything that was opposite of what you believed to be your experience?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And it's funny, you asked earlier, I think Robin, what her superpower was. I think my superpower is being a mom. Didn't expect that, was real nervous about having a kid while running a business. And I think I am a better CEO. And this is just speaking from my own personal experience. So this is not going to be everyone's experience. I think I'm a better CEO, and that I run a more successful business. I actually think my business is more successful now that I'm a mother. And part of the reason is because someone came into my life and snatched half my time away. And what that meant was I am real good at ruthlessly prioritizing and only doing what I'm good at, right? So that was another point that Robin made. I don't have time to do all the things that I wanted to do before I became a mom. But I'm at least one person who can say, like in my personal experience, my business did not suffer. Certainly I had to make choices, but I actually think that that was the most unexpected but wonderful thing that's happened in the past couple of years.
Yeah, prioritization and doing what you do best, that's very powerful. Don't waste your time doing what you're not good at. Doesn't have the impact.
Yeah. But let's just be clear, you have half the time.
Yeah.
Half.
So Robin, here's one from a young audience. I love the musician Amanda Palmer because she is fearless and promotes the art of asking. I'm afraid of failure because I have no net and I'm afraid to ask others for help. How did you tackle the need to ask for help or survive during those early days?
That's a great question, first of all. I too am not good at asking for help, so I can completely identify with that. One of the ways that I got around that was I built relationships. I didn't focus on the transaction as much as the interaction and the relationship. And I also like went out of my way not to inconvenience somebody. So if I like really wanted, like for instance, right, the CEO of Blue Bottle, who was like, I was like really wanted to pick his brain. I was literally like, I will meet you like anywhere and walk you to your car. I just knew like 5 minutes, or I will bring you a coffee so you don't have to go out and get one if you'll walk. Like I was literally going out of my way to figure out not to be annoying, but I was persistent. And then I was just myself, and I was like pretty vulnerable. And then most of these people, like to the CEO of Blue Bottle is an advisor of mine now. And because we just developed a relationship and he ended up like helping, me get into YPO, which has been an amazingly helpful CEO network for me. And so part of that is like, I did not see it as I need this person's help to get from A to B. I was like, I kind of just want to like know this person, and I'm going to like find a way in that's not annoying, but is persistent. And then I just want to be like, here's my deal. Like, here's me. And if you like me, then like, let's do this again. And I'll do it in a way that's not annoying again. So that was kind of how I developed relationships that then became advisors, that then became my support. And I did not see it as an immediate thing. It took months, it took years for some people to really, to bring the value that like I just thought they could in the future. So I think it's just like a different lens for me.
Nice, I like it. Okay, we only have time for one more question, and then we've got a few housekeeping things. But Christina, we'll end it out with you. Is how do young people with so much peer pressure dare to be different?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. So full transparency, I was that kid everybody made fun of in school, like everyone. I didn't have a single friend. I ate lunch in a stairwell every day by myself. And I am so grateful for that now, because that allowed me to not seek validation, to not care what other people around me are saying about me. So I actually count that as one of the biggest blessings of my life, was going through that, because at a very young age, I got to develop really tough skin. So, I heard an entrepreneur once say that, the most successful entrepreneurs are the weirdos in life, are just the weirdest people. So if you're a weirdo, like that to me means you're going to be really successful. That means that, you're not going to care what other people think, and you're just going to go for it. So if that's you, like embrace it and be so glad that that's you, because you've heard the thing like, don't peak in high school, right? Don't peak in high school. Like, I when I go back to that hometown of 3,600 people, there's still people from my high school working the drive-through at McDonald's, like, don't be that person. And so, be as weird as you want to be. And when people make fun of you, just in your head think, ha ha ha, like I'm going to be someone, So that's what I would say. Like, just embrace being different than everyone else, not having to conform, knowing that that's what's going to be your superhero later on, is the fact that you don't have to look, you don't have to act, you don't have to like be like anyone else but yourself.
Love it. Again, you guys really echoed a lot of themes. Great job. Thank you so much. You keep trying, you dust off any dirt that when you fall, and you don't give up, and you don't care about the no's, right? So really great. And you can apply this whether you're an entrepreneur, right? Or you are working in corporate, or you are wherever you are. These are all traits that really help us get through all our days and sort of like reach for the stars. Our chat is blowing up. Really, they're just thanking you all so much. We'll just we'll bring up the slide deck again and just ask you guys to fill out a survey that we're going to send out after this recording. You'll get it emailed. We'd love you to go ahead and fill out the survey. Also reminding you, we're going to be donating Diana's books. And again, Diana, thank you for pinging Dean and seeing his beautiful daughter reading your book and making this all happen. And we will then also be emailing you a copy of this recording. So in case you wanted to share it with others, please feel free to do so. And again, thank you for every time zone for joining, for every age group for joining, and for being a part of this Armanino webinar. And we thank you all for enjoying and coming.